When the trigger becomes the healer, you've won. Now, just let time catch up. What do I mean with this? It's taken from my journal, and I wanted to break this down. When the trigger becomes the healer, you've won. Okay, so most people, they go through life being triggered. They can be triggered by many different things, right? Anything from a political statement, music, words, somebody not doing what they want, something happening that they don't want, something not happening that they want it to happen. Really, anything can trigger someone. I'm sure you can relate also to times in your life where something triggered you. Basically, something happening in the world that creates a trigger event within us that makes us upset. We are taught that triggers are something to avoid. The person who is triggering us is considered a bad person, often. We don't really like to take accountability on... We don't really like to take on this accountability when we are triggered. We like to, throw excuses, blame others when we get triggered. And we forget to realize that if we don't take accountability for being triggered, this trigger is gonna happen again. So, because most people avoid taking accountability or owning their triggers, these triggers will come back. And so people are in this loop of being triggered. There's also this environment that we live in, like an attention economy, right? Where people actually make money from triggering you. Your attention in this day and age is worth money. People look at ads, people buy products after looking at ads, people share content when they are outraged. Triggering makes money. So we are kind of being taken advantage of a little bit. It's just how the system has played itself out. So we have to kind of protect ourselves a little bit from being triggered, right? We can think that that constantly being triggered might be a you problem, right? If you are the one being triggered all the time, maybe it is something to do with you. So, the original quote, when the trigger becomes the healer, you've won. So, most people, when they get triggered, they kind of double down on this trigger, right? Let's say you are triggered by a certain politician. Every time you read something about this politician, every time you see this politician, you get triggered. You kind of start hating, or you get even more triggered every time you see content from this politician. And you start hanging out with people that share the worldview, being triggered by this certain politician, so that it creates this bubble, right? Because you're not going to hang out with people who like this politician if you get triggered just by other people not sharing your trigger. So we tend to kind of narrow our triggers. But there is a threshold that is super valuable that I wanted to highlight from this quote, that the trigger is meant to show us something. It can raise emotions like anger, but often these emotions are actually pointing towards something. And if we just react to the emotions, this trigger is going to become stronger, but we are not going to see where this arrow of emotions are pointing to. there's actually some value in what this trigger is trying to tell us if we don't react to the trigger and make it stronger. Actually, it will become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, because the nature of a trigger is that long term it shouldn't be able to go unnoticed. So there is a threshold, a time in someone's life that is very valuable when somebody realizes that, oh, the triggers are actually meant to show me something. Instead of the trigger is just setting me off in a direction and I double down on the trigger. There's a very big difference between person A, who is reacting to their triggers, and person B, who kind of treats triggers as arrows pointing to something within them. So, if we don't like triggers, if triggers create trauma, right? When a trigger appears in my life, I react negatively to it, the trigger gets stronger, and I get negative emotions, right? I'm gonna avoid triggers, so they're gonna happen, like they're gonna be less frequent, but they're gonna become stronger, and eventually they will come more frequently. But the other person who realizes that, oh, triggers are meant to show me something, they start to welcome triggers. They start to realize that a trigger is an opportunity to break old patterns. Because if this situation didn't trigger me, this material within me that was dormant and made me susceptible for this trigger to begin with, if it didn't trigger, I wouldn't be aware that it was there. I would just be carrying that around. So in a way, triggers are blessings in disguise. Let's say there's a couple, right? And there's a conflict. Somebody gets triggered in the relationship, right? Let's say one partner doesn't want to, or is not doing the household chores, right? And this trigger happens within the relationship. One person gets annoyed at the other. This is an opportunity to actually heal the relationship. Or it's an opportunity to make these triggers stronger. If we, you see, it's the same trigger, and one type of person is going to just be angry, right? And the other person is going to see it as an opportunity to actually make the relationship stronger. The same, let's say family is at a dinner and there are different political views. One person gets triggered, right? This is an opportunity to understand yourself and the other person better. Or it's an opportunity to strawman the other person and make this person more angry and yourself more angry. So, triggers are opportunities to get closer to yourself, get closer to other people, and to see what have I been carrying, right? It's not really healthy to just like be triggered. It's not a natural thing, really, if we think about it, right? You are minding your own business, something happens in your environment, and boom, you are triggered. That's not really what we want our inner environment to be like. It is really, the goal is to not be triggered by things and situations, external circumstances that we can't really control. So the end goal, like, I'm not saying that we need to have the same political views, but we can have different political views, we can have different opinions, without being triggered. So, coming back to this original quote, or this quote that we started with, that when, let me see what it was. When the trigger becomes the healer, you've won. Because then you can begin searching for triggers, actually. Instead of avoiding triggers and feeling bad that they happened, you can actually start hunting these triggers. This is when the growth can scale exponentially, right? When you realize that, whoa, a trigger is meant to show me something. I am accountable, I can heal from this, I can grow from this, instead of just becoming more and more angry. It's like the wheel of reaction, of triggering, starts to reverse when you realize that a trigger is actually carrying information. It's carrying lessons. It's carrying tangles from your past that you are now able to handle. But you need to have or build some form of accountability within you that whatever I react to, it's on me. So otherwise you can't own it. Otherwise you are just gonna continue to blame external situations for your triggers, right? Oh, I wouldn't have been triggered if they didn't do that, or if they weren't stupid, or if they weren't immoral, I wouldn't be triggered, right? They can still be immoral without you being triggered. I don't buy this link. And just because somebody is immoral doesn't need to, you don't need to have a shaky inner environment because of that. The goal, I suppose, is to be able to be in any situation that used to trigger you and now it doesn't. That is a clear sign that you have started taking accountability, and instead of running away and fighting these triggers, you are now using them as opportunities to grow and heal. Another benefit of this is that there's a lot of energy that is invested in being triggered, right? If you're constantly angry or sad or upset about things that you can't really control, that's a lot of energy spent on being triggered. Once you reverse this process, you get this new resource of energy that you can actually invest into making a change. Before, you were just investing this energy into being upset, and now, once you are not just reacting and throwing away your energy and creating a poor mental environment, you can actually invest that energy into other things that will give you more energy. And who knows, maybe with this energy you can actually do something positive and change whatever you were triggered by to begin with. There is a victim mentality that somebody who is constantly triggered can be comfortable in, to hide in. That if you are constantly triggered and you are the victim, you never actually have to do anything about it because it's somebody else's fault. This is what we want to change. We want to take this empowerment, use triggers to heal ourselves as opportunities to understand ourselves and others. Instead of breaking apart, we use triggers to become closer to whatever we want, at least in understanding. And the unlocked energy we can invest in whatever we want and create happier lives for us. And this change happens, when we pass this threshold where triggers used to be doubling down on the triggers, and now we are healing and healing. Once we shift this, the game becomes more about finding these triggers And once you have this mindset and you see triggers for what they actually are, which is healing opportunities, then time just needs to catch up. It's going to take some time to actually be triggered because triggers kind of point to whatever we are carrying. So it might take a few months, a few years even, to be triggered. But it's good that situations triggered us, because then it comes up and we can deal with it instead of running away from it. So, good luck with being triggered. So next time you're triggered, remember that, hey, this is actually a good thing. I can deal with this. So that's my challenge to you. Good luck with being triggered.